All right, my 540i, which is the E39, has been in storage for quite some time. I've already done a lot of work on it. You can see that I have the cabin filter off above the fuse box and check some fuses and relays. And now it's time to replace the spark plugs. I've already done the oil change and cabin filters and a variety of other things. So let's go through an oil change on the E39. Step one, we're going to remove this top cover to give us access to the top of the engine. You do that by depressing each of these little tabs, which will release the cover from the top of the engine. Okay, with your next step, you're going to take a small flathead screwdriver and remove these little caps right here on this valve cover. Now, this is a plastic valve cover. These little caps are very finely fitted into this cap cover, and as you can see, take a piece of blue tape really quickly and stick it to the top of the cap on both sides, because you do need to remove 4 of these. And why do you need the blue tape? Well, here's how I know. Watch the video. Okay, once you get ready to remove these caps, there is a very small notch at the bottom of the cap right here. And that little notch is meant specifically to help you get this cap off. Otherwise, it's a very tight fit around the edges of this cap. That little notch is right at the bottom. All right, next step, grab yourself a 10mm socket and remove these 2 bolts on each of the covers. So 4 bolts to remove to get this cover off. Be very careful removing these bolts, because you could end up having to take off your engine cover if you drop them all the way down there. Since I already dropped a piece down there, that's not a big deal for me, but still, be careful removing these bolts. Now that we have the 2 bolts removed from the plastic cover, we can wiggle this plastic cover by getting our fingers under the edge and just wiggle it loose. I've already loosened it. And you can do that much easier on the side over here if the cabin filter cover is missing or removed. There is a plastic piece from this cover that does travel underneath, but it goes through this hole. It looks like it's connected, but it's not. It goes through this hole, and there are 4 of them. So don't worry about that, because this cover will pry off fairly easily once you get it all taken apart. And just take this cover off. All right, your next step is to release this retaining clip, which holds down the electronic connection for your spark plug. You just do that by grabbing the clip on the sides and pulling back by wiggling just a little bit. Once that's done, grab the sides of your electronic connection and wiggle it up and loose. And now you've released the electronic connection, so you can move on to the next step. Moving on, we have to get to our spark plugs finally. And after removing all 8 of these electronic connectors and doing that by releasing these retaining clips, we now need to take off all of these spark plug caps. And the way you get that done is by removing each of these 2 screws. 2 screws per cap. Once that's done, you should be able to lift this cap out, exposing the spark plug underneath. Once again, be very careful not to drop one of these nuts down into your engine bay or into this very deep well where the spark plugs sit. These nuts loosened very quickly with 1 turn of the wrench, so I loosened them all up first, and now I'm just going to use the stud and socket to back them off with a quick turn of my hand so I can take my time and not lose any parts. Now we moved on to the best part, which is pulling out these covers. All the screws are out, all the electronic connections have been removed, and you just give it a little wiggle. Pop that sucker out. And it slides out in one big piece. Do that 8 times. It's finally go time. Grab a 5/8 inch deep socket spark plug remover and carefully back out all 8 of your spark plugs. Remember, this is an aluminum block. Be careful, do not put too much torque on these when you remove them or when you put them back. All right, one of the best things you can do to get yourself started on the reinstall is to just do it by hand and get yourself lined up. Slowly start turning, and if threads are good, you'll know pretty quickly. Okay, I'm losing daylight, so I have the 4 spark plugs hand tightened on the driver's side, and I still have to put the 4 in on the passenger side. I'm going to tidy this thing up tonight and try to get it started. I'm going to just put everything back in reverse order. One thing to keep in mind, don't forget these 2 little wires right here need to be attached to this nut on the passenger side, which is the second nut in, and on the driver's side is going to be the 3rd nut in. At least on my vehicle, that's how it's wired. Don't forget those little guys, they need to be connected.